Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we have a look at the 2021 horror film Jacob's Wife. This is episode 430. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So, warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, which you can find at Global Comics. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
To love your wife is to love yourself.
And finally, also in Denver, color commentary from, speaking of my wife, Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. And I'm not as good as smooth with the quotes as Drew, but my favorite quote from this movie is the little girl going, "It doesn't look like laundry to me. It looks like Mrs. Perkins all rolled up in a bedspread." It's super funny.
All right. Jacob's Wife is a 2021 American vampire horror film directed and produced by Travis Stevens from a screenplay by Stevens, Kathy Charles, and Mark Steensland. And the film stars Barbara Crampton, Larry Fessenden, and Bonnie Aarons. So let's get our opening thoughts. We'll go Drew, Julia, Tony, and I'll go. Our opening thoughts on this film. There wasn't really a synopsis in there, but about a preacher's wife who slowly succumbs to vampirism and finds that it changes the way that she looks at herself, her marriage, and maybe even society. Drew.
I'm sorry, that was pretty funny.
Drew, what are your thoughts?
I really love this movie. I remember when it first came out, watching it as a video on demand movie because it was during the COVID pandemic. I was immediately taken with it. It is one of my favorite kind of contemporary horror movies in that it's small, contained cast, very stylish. And as far as being a vampire movie, I liked that it examined sort of patriarchal tropes while still in its way being a very traditional vampire movie. And right down to Bonnie Aarons, I should say, character, the Master, having a Bela Lugosi vampire cape, which made me, as a big Bela Lugosi fan, that made me very, very happy. So I think this is a terrific movie and a great central performance by Barbara Crampton, who is of course a horror icon at this point, but also her supporting cast is also terrific. And I don't know if anybody else felt this strongly about it, but this is one of the better vampire movies to come out in recent years, in my opinion. I just think it's wonderful.
Very good. Thank you so much. Julia, what about you?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny in parts and very thought-provoking in parts. There were some things I didn't love about it. Like I didn't particularly love the ending. I thought it was kind of left us a little bit hanging out to dry, or whatever the expression is. But yeah, I thought it was fun, and I liked Barbara Crampton and her character, both the actor and the character, quite a bit. Just in terms of like, I don't know. We'll have a lot to talk about for sure regarding her.
Very good. Thank you. Tony, what about you?
I like the movie a lot. It's got a great cast. I've been hearing about it a lot. I don't take me this long to watch it. It's everything about it is something I should have watched already, and I think it just got lost in the shuffle. Like it was one of those, oh yeah, I need to watch it this weekend, which is a shame because it is really good. Although it is great because it means that we all get to talk about it now.
Yes.
So that part's great. Yeah, I think it does a lot of really great stuff. I think they made a lot of interesting choices throughout it that we can discuss. Solid vampire flick through and through. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Definitely recommend it. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. So the thing that I would start with as we talk about this is that Jacob's Wife, I think, is the funny thing is it's a wonderful vampire film, but I thought for a vampire film it has more to say about more that's real anyway to say about marriage, long-term marriages, and the changes that they go through and the conversations that happen in them that I see generally. I think that's where the movie really succeeds, is in having, because there are banal conversations you can have about marriage all the time. Like if I'm doing like an Am I the Asshole thing on Reddit, there's always some like Cro-Magnon man who's got a very traditional view, and there's always some other person who has this sort of flippant anti-marriage view. This movie sort of places itself right in the middle, where Barbara Crampton her character has a lot to say about what's happened to her as she's been married, what's happened to her life, but it doesn't mean that she's ready to just flip the tables. It means that she wants to figure out where she is. I mean, is that it? Did anybody else react the way I did?
I think that that's a really solid take. I also thought it was interesting that it starts looking like you could go in a direction where, him being a minister in the church is the minister is against vampires and he's also a prude and all of that, but it doesn't go there either.
Yeah.
He's genuinely trying to help people where he can. Like it starts, you go, oh, this is how this is going to go. And I think that's one of the best parts of the movie is it doesn't ever quite go where you think it might.
Right.
And that was really refreshing. Because
it's very layered.
Yeah, and they're watching their relationship, and she's the kind of, when we first see her, we get, oh, she's a subservient wife who's, there's this minister guy, and he's probably bad, and he's preaching this and that, and I kind of see where it's like, well, no, they're equally kind of trying to make it work, and even if she's tempted in the relationship, not just her like, oh, now I'm evil and I'm gonna do evil things. Like it's there's a lot more. I think that's fair in what you're picking up. It doesn't go the places that you think it might. And I think that's magic.
A lot of the times when it's surprising is when it's so funny. Like to me, the fact that the minister just immediately becomes like Van Helsing and he's like, okay, I guess we're vampire hunting now, was hilarious. Like he's just fully just goes, okay, I got this. I get how this is gonna go. He's like perfectly willing to stake a guy through the heart within minutes of figuring out what the situation is. I just thought that whole thing was so funny to me.
The way it balances like the reality of their relationship with the more fantastical elements of a vampire film is terrific. But I also like there's stuff that is just gut-wrenchingly real about their relationship, like the whole thing at the beginning of the film that he keeps talking over her, he keeps interrupting her. That's a problem in my own relationship. Like I found that really like I have a tendency to butt in over Jamie's comments, and that's something I feel bad about, and it's something that's been a source of friction in our relationship over the years. So to see that in a vampire film of all things is really grounds these characters in a like before any of the vampire stuff starts happening. Like I think like you said, Jason, anybody who has been in a relationship for a long time with somebody else, like they will find something of themselves.
Yeah, and it's even down to just that when you're not in a good place in your relationship, and it doesn't matter why exactly, as long as it's not like a super abusive situation, there's gonna be things that are gonna annoy the crap out of you that the rest of the time didn't really annoy the crap out of you. So like just the fact that she's looking at him as he's like brushing his teeth or whatever, and just being like so annoyed just with everything he's doing. If you ever have been either in your marriage or in another relationship to that point where you're just like, right now everything you're doing is bugging the crap out of me, then you relate to it. And what's great is that, take the vampire part out of it, the fact that they can then recover from that is really cool, because that is true for a lot of marriages, not necessarily all of them, but a lot of them, is that you get past that point and then you're good again. So it's fine. Now it's funny that in this case, again, part of the funny thing is that it takes her becoming a vampire for that to happen. I mean, I'm serious. Just everything about this movie just
Yeah,
made
as
made
it
me chuckle.
happens in this film, she's going through right, and there are other metaphors. Like I think if you were if you were, say, let's say you were a big polyamorist, you might say, well, I think this is a metaphor for setting yourself free from a traditional marriage and moving towards opening it up and polyamory. But I think that I think there's room to interpret it in lots of different ways. And
Yeah.
my take was actually in this one much more traditional, is that they are trying to, vampirism becomes a metaphor for how couples renegotiate the terms of
Mhm.
their marriage and stay married. And when I say
Yeah.
renegotiate, it sounds so serious, like, oh, I don't know, like, I think we should move to separate rooms, or we should see other people, but just renegotiate how we're going to talk to one another and how we're
Mhm.
going to like carry on our
See
daily
each
lives,
other.
and so
Yeah.
forth. But yeah,
Well,
it's interesting that she one of the big catalysts is Tom. So Barbara and Larry Fessenden have been married for since the dawn of time. And as she describes it, her life has gotten smaller. It is now basically all about her community in this church. And into town comes her old boyfriend, Tom. And she suddenly is faced with this notion that she could have this romance, which seems like a really exciting idea, because she's been really bored and feeling unfulfilled. And
Well, and frankly, she is a 10, and Larry Fessenden is like a 5.
yeah, I mean, considering, yeah,
I
no doubt
love you.
about it.
I love you, Larry. I do. I'm just laying it out there. I,
It is interesting because Tom is this, as she calls him, dangerously handsome person. Her words, anyway.
well, and
And
he even says, I am surprised you married Jacob. Like
right,
there is the notion that she could have done, quote unquote, better.
And she says, he was there for me when my dad died, unlike you, basically, is the understanding there. Like, you left, and he was there, and I needed someone, and so then it just worked out that way. But yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
go ahead, Jason.
And so the funny thing is, she's tempted to have this affair, and the film ends up. So this is, by the way, the realm of erotic thrillers. Like it. This happens to be a vampire movie, but what we're dealing with here is an erotic thriller plot. Where marriage is on the rocks. Sexy guy comes to town, and there's temptation, and usually somebody winds up dead, and secrets will be revealed. It
Well,
just
Which
so
someone,
happens.
that
someone,
did happen. All those
yeah,
things.
Yes. What were you gonna say, Drew?
someone did end up dead.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was Tom.
No, well, but what's different, though, about Jacob's Wife compared to the plot of an erotic thriller, uh, erotic thrillers, this movie winds up being, I think, a lot more honest about how people put their lives back together, as opposed to erotic thrillers are usually about just sort of the excitement of watching somebody blow their life the fuck apart. I mean, you usually by the end of an erotic thriller, somebody gets thrown off a cliff, and like nobody's ever the same again. This is I understand that Barbara Crampton's changed forever, but there are a lot of similarities to the erotic thriller formula, but a lot of big differences, and it comes from I'm just really impressed by the writer's willingness both to embrace a lot of vampire shit, but also just a lot of like healthy marriage shit. I mean, that was it's just wild. Okay, anyway, I've probably belabored that point enough. So this movie takes place in what I can only assume is Tony Salvaggio's hometown. This is Mississippi, in what looks to me like the early '90s, I guess.
Oh, it's
Tony.
bigger than where I lived,
Oh yeah.
if you can believe that. Yeah, I mean, I noticed it was Mississippi, but it could be. I mean, it could be a lot of places in Texas as well. Just as
Oh,
easy.
yeah.
Definitely is not the early 90s because Tom Lowe has a cell phone.
Tom Lowe
Right.
has a cell phone.
So
Oh, I
late
didn't-
90s, maybe.
Yeah, I don't
It
know.
looks like a contemporary cell. The time period to me is confusing because everybody is driving
Old
old cars, but the clothing
Now that I
And-
could see in rural towns because you
Sure.
just don't
for sure.
get rid of like that. That tracks.
Yeah, 'cause you're
Yeah.
not driving
But it
very
is a
much.
modern. Like I thought it was, if nothing else, at least in this decade.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
I mean the cell phone looked contemporary, but I mean it could have just been that they were trying to do a deliberate, ambiguous time period. Like because when Barbara Crampton gets bit, she has these awesome sort of mod outfits, and then of course
I love her clothes.
yeah, and then of course the master is dressed like a vampire movie character, like looks like Nosferatu, but is dressed like Bela Lugosi, basically.
Yes. You're right. Well, her outfits are so classic they could be anything. Like I posted on my Instagram feed how her red outfit is literally almost identical to the outfit that the Countess wears in Daughters of Darkness. The red itself plus the scarf. Yeah.
So it's
There's
kind
lot
of a
good
love letter.
costuming. Yeah.
It's kind of a love letter to vampire movies, to like the number of different kinds, I guess. What were you
Yes.
saying, Tony?
Yeah, the costuming is fantastic in that
Yeah,
way.
it's
And I mean, there's we get the master is Nosferatu / Barlow from Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
There's
But
a
that's where
lot
my
of
mind
Salem's
goes.
Lot. There's a lot of
Yeah.
Salem's Lot in this, but like the consistent presence of rats is
Yes.
definitely a nod to Nosferatu.
And
yeah.
the teeth, the fangs.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, Barlow had those too, but yes,
Right.
I mean, honestly, it's a fruitless fight to go which is because
Well, I
those
think
movies are
I
so-
think they were cherry picking stuff from older vampire movies because like if I may dive right into this, I don't
Oh,
know the presentation of what a vampire is, and this is one of the things I love about this movie, is very classic. Like it's the classic vampire rules. They can't go out during the day. They are repelled by crosses and holy water, presumably garlic. That we never get into that.
Yeah.
About the only thing that we see that might be interpreted this is Barbara Crampton does still have a reflection, but she's not a full vampire yet. And
Yeah.
the master, I love this character so much. Like I don't think I realized how much I missed capes on vampires until this movie, because they make such a good use out of it. Like it's this thing that like literally bellows over her victims as she takes them, and it's shot so beautifully. But also I like the fact that this movie is able to be like, yes, vampirism is this satanic thing, but they also still manage to make it morally gray without really even trying to change the rules too
Yes.
much. Because the questions that the master puts out there about the sort of patriarchal
Right.
aspects of our society, those are fair questions that she's
Right.
asking. And it also kind of turns the trope of like Dracula's brides on its head, because she deliberately takes women as her victims, but in this case she's not doing it to make them subservient to her. She's doing it to make the quote unquote liberate them.
To
And
empower them. Yeah.
and I thought that was a very interesting subversion of the tropes, but again, without kind of sacrificing that this is a sinister character. You never lose that, because I think a lot of the times when they do that in contemporary vampire movies, they end up making the vampire almost too human and too sympathetic.
Right.
Here they strike like a perfect balance for something, to me, that had enough moral ambiguity, that it made the questions that it asks interesting, but without losing the fact that we are watching a horror film and that this character is supposed to be scary.
Well, I mean,
yes.
I don't get to hear these questions a lot lately. I feel like this took me all the way back to Kiss of the Vampire, the 1963 film, which is one of the few that, like this, presents vampirism as something akin to a rival cult to Christianity. Like, you are a Christian, but I'm going to try to get you into a rival cult that I believe has that there are benefits. You'll thrive in this rival cult, and you'll do well, and you'll be free of your terrible husband and all
Yeah,
this stuff.
well,
Yeah.
also, to the points of some of the movies you're talking about, the running theme there is, why are you stuck with mediocre men?
Right. Yes.
And they are often mediocre men, like truly, like either narcissists or just weak-willed, and they're presented that way. Whereas the other, and yet another thing that's flipped is, once we have this choice, like, look, he's just weak. Look at him. He's a minister, and you've been under his thumb this whole time. You've been told to be subservient. Like, how's that working out for you? And yet still, maybe we'll talk about it more, but like, they even flip that. Like, there's the choice. The choice that's offered isn't just a choice of vampirism,
Right.
Which is the major choice as per vampire rules, basically. But also, in choosing vampirism, she can also choose to get out from under all this the boring housewife, being the boring traditional wife.
Right.
And the choice she makes is interesting as well. But the fact that the master it's not just like, ha ha ha, I'm corrupting you. Although we do see the corruption happens throughout, and that's also interesting.
To me,
and
go ahead, Drew.
No, you first.
I was just going to say, for my personal experience of doing what she did, is that I spent the first bunch of years of our marriage just being like, I'll just do what I think Jason wants. Absolutely was that. I just do what I think he wants me to be or whatever. And then it was only when we kind of hit a crisis point that I was like, you know what? I need to be able to be myself. And if you're not okay with that, then I guess we have to figure something else out. But and that has made like all the difference, because just being able to be yourself in your most closest relationship is like so crucial. And yet so many of us, women and men alike, will go, I'm just going to hide parts of me because I'm afraid the person's going to reject me. It's not that you don't like that part of you, it's that you're afraid you're going to be rejected for it. And so I really identified with that whole part.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that they're kind of flipped the script on, before we get too far away from this, is, like the idea that he is this, weak, horrible man. And I mean, he is definitely a flawed man, but he isn't bad. Like, they give him enough dimension, and that when when the shit hits the fan, like, he does have her back to the point where he's going to help her bury a body.
Right.
And not just bury a body, bleed a body so that she can drink from it.
Yeah.
It's
like,
amazing.
he isn't like actually like objectively terrible to her. He's got some character flaws. He's a bit kind of wrapped up in his own thing, but
aren't we all, by the way?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like, he's got her, and that does cut back to like the earlier conversation that she does have with Tom Lowe, that he was there for her. And we see that in his character, and I found that fascinating, because I think a lesser movie would have written him as just like a full-on misogynistic pig.
Right.
And he's not, he to this movie's credit, he's not that. He's a multi-dimensional, like he's a bit of a fuddy dud. Like he doesn't like people, cussing. He gives like the skateboarding teens like a hard time, but like,
Yeah,
there's
to
more
him-
to him than that.
To him,
Even when
though,
all-
they are smoking pot outside the church.
No, that was
Which is
enough.
like,
Even when all hell's breaking loose, he starts to cuss and then he catches himself and then doesn't. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, think of the characters in like this may be a terrible no, I'm going to stick with it. Halloween 4, I think, where you've got Jamie living in this house and the terrible drunk asshole suburban dad is just an abusive jerkwad and there's literally nothing. In other words, the commentary is that suburban life is a joke and a mirage, and that's not what's going on here in this movie. It's what am I going to be? But it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be what other people want me to be, including this new woman who's entered my life and says, hey, I have a whole new set of strictures for you, and you can follow that. That going from one set of values to another just because it's new doesn't necessarily lead one to wisdom either. So it's fascinating that this film is more complicated than that.
And like I said before, they could have done the trope. I mean, he could have just as easily been a, I don't know, Footloose type preacher, Southern Baptist preacher, or some form of like I can't believe you won't be my traditional wife. And they subvert that as well, which he's schlubby in the movie.
Yes.
He's like we talked about, like, hey, and I'm sure he would probably have been just fine continuing that life.
Yes.
But as far as
a schlubby guy, I just gotta say, you can in fact live your whole damn life this way. Yes.
I'm not svelte at all. But I mean, just his demeanor, the way he approaches life. This character is, content with what he does, and even when things are weird, he's like, I gotta go work on my script, like my sermon.
Yep.
I can't be bothered with this. But the way that turns, it would have been easy for him to just be this, this really stereotypical, oh, that's a Southern Baptist preacher. Like, look at how he's doing. And of course, the vampires are evil, so let's go that. But they build, like we talked about, layers into that. On a side note, by the way, Canton, Mississippi, they say it's got like 10,000 people, and the closest town to where I lived, Tylertown, was the closest, and that's like 1,000 or 1,700 people, 1,600 people. So this is 10 times larger.
Wait, you just said the closest town to where I lived, meaning you didn't even live in the town?
I did not live in Tylertown. So the area where I was at, Salem, Mississippi, had less people than 1,000.
Wow.
So this
Meanwhile,
town,
my grade in high school was like 800 people.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like I said before, my graduating class is like 30 something. I was a valedictorian of 30 something people, or less, like around that. But yeah, so I looked actually, and Salem is, when I said it's in the middle of nowhere, it literally is in between two, like equidistant between two larger towns that is in the middle. So I was like, I'm not lying about that. But this town is, if you think this town is small, the one they're in, it is 10 times larger than the nearest town where I lived. Again, I got back to Texas as soon as I could, for better or worse.
The ruralness of this town, and again, to its credit of the screenwriters here, it's more than just texture. Like it actually factors into the characters and into the plot, because Barbara Crampton's character is a real estate developer basically, and the reason why she's meeting with Tom Lowe is they're going to turn this old gin mill into I guess it sounds like some sort of shopping center or something, but I wasn't
really clear on that, but yes,
it sounds like they're gonna gut the inside but keep the exterior. So I guess in an attempt to lure hipsters to this town, But the fact that it's not just atmosphere, like it actually plays into some of the character stuff. It was, like this has got a very tight script. Like everything, just kind of works, like, and it's, the also the small townness of it, like the fact that the minister and the sheriff seem like they know each other pretty well, like that feels pretty authentic
Oh,
to
that'll happen
me.
all the time in that
Yeah.
area. Like that's
Yeah.
definitely we had a former sheriff who always used to harass us when I went to community college, and he was the sheriff of a small town and decided to flex that
Good
with
grief.
me and my friends all the time at community college, including almost every day asking us if we went to school there.
What's his name?
Like,
Boss Hogg?
yes, yes, and you couldn't really say it because you didn't want to get hassled again, but yes, just like yesterday, we still go to school here, jerk. Like yeah, I don't miss Mississippi. Sorry. I have good friends there, but woof. By the way, another thing, I don't know if it factors into this movie, but this is actually like the real town is not too far. It's just north of Jackson, which is the capital, which is like the biggest city. I guess it's Jackson and Biloxi, that are the two kind of, Biloxi being on the coast, are the two big towns. Like if you want to go to see a concert, you would go to one of those places or go west to New Orleans. Or Baton Rouge. But yeah, that I was kind of looking like, where was this set? And it makes sense because it's not too far from the city, but of course Jackson's a fairly dangerous city at this point. So I don't know if Tom's come in from Jackson, where his successful real estate is or what. But yeah,
it is
the small townness of it is cool.
It's such a traditional concept, by the way. This sort of I use the term Lucy, sexy ex who's come in from the big city with a sort of a vaguely exciting job, and like all of that is just perfect. There's something else, by the way, while we're talking about the town. There's this moment when Barbara Crampton has started to turn and she's wearing sexier outfits and she goes to the grocery store. This is where she decides that she needs to get some bags of blood. But her wandering around the grocery store, this is a motif that I see in so many horror movies set in the United States. The slow walk through the grocery store is something almost as much a part of cinema as like the slow walk in The Right Stuff, because like Stepford Wives has the slow walk in the grocery store. Messiah of Evil, which I just saw recently, 1974, has slow walk in the grocery store. I know that there are others. Well, no, Stepford Kids does it again.
But what's interesting is that I actually have very very vivid physical like memories of grocery stores associated with traumatic things. Like I have so many, the most vivid memories I have from the COVID time is the grocery store. It's just like all the thing. And then whenever I've had when I've been in a really dark place, I have this memory of walking through the grocery store and just being like, it's so weird to be doing this normal thing when my life is so upside down, so it's very interesting. It's actually quite accurate. I think that's an important, thing.
The whole thing of her going, like, by the way, the small town grocery store like this is the place where I guarantee you some people saw her in that store and immediately, as soon as they could get home and phone somebody, I saw her in the store and she's wearing this
buying
dress
blood
and she's buying this. Oh, did you see her? Like, if you want to get stared at in a small town, you just go to the grocery store. I hate to go to the grocery store. Oh man, it's always just like, oh, do I have to go to the store? I don't want to.
She is so funny. Her bizarre acting out, like where she can only barely control, like when she pokes her finger through the meat, and then it's like, holy shit, I can't believe I just did that. Also, can I get some more of this blood here?
Yeah.
But she does that over and over again to, like, all of her activities always come
I love
with
when
her
she's
sort of,
it's all the things that are cliche in in a non-vampire movie. They're done with vampire touches or whatever, which like she rearranges the furniture, which is a thing that people do, but she does it by lifting the chair like way up in the air. So it's like
yes.
showing that she's like super strong now. And she dances, but she dances with a lamp. It's just all
That
this
was
weird
good. That
stuff.
montage was great, I thought.
The strength thing, though, I will say, it did make me call to question why she needed Jacob to help her move a body later on in the movie.
Mm.
Maybe it was just a bonding thing. Like she knew she didn't
Yeah.
need him, but she wanted him to be included.
She wanted him to. Didn't want to emasculate him.
She
maybe.
wanted the buy-in. Like, now
Yeah.
you're in it with me.
Yeah. She just wanted to see if he'll go along with it.
hmm
I can give you an in-universe bullshit reasoning, which is that bodies are much more complicated to move than just picking up a
Yeah, they're
rigid
not.
sofa.
Well, but
because they're floppy.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
that is
exactly.
actually true. You use different muscles for things that are not rigid than you do for things that are
yeah,
loose.
I mean,
But
she could have done it. She could have thrown the body up over her shoulder and carried it out that way. But yes, it was better this way, and it was also funnier because of the little girl. That
yes,
little girl like makes this movie. She's hilarious.
She's great.
yes.
She's so
Yeah.
cute.
Well,
She
and they're
watches
such
them.
shitty criminals. I mean, they get caught.
Yeah.
It's like in Slacker when this guy murders, I think, his father and gets caught like within 90 seconds.
Well, I don't
The-
think they're trying to get away with anything. I actually think they're only bringing the body wrapped up just because it's easier. Well, I guess the wrapping up is a little bit trying to get away with it, but they're doing it in broad daylight out in front of the house. So clearly, and they know that little girl's out there. So clearly, they don't care that much about getting away with
it's
this
unclear.
particular thing.
Uh,
Especially because I think he thinks he has justified it to himself because the lady died of natural causes. So they didn't kill her, and now he just needs to feed his wife, so he's just getting her food. So it's fine.
Yes, it is just hilarious. But yeah, Danny Ocean, he is not. I mean, they
Yeah.
basically immediately, they're terrible at lying to the cops. He gets he gets pulled over. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I should also mention that the gore effects reminded me of the rubbery from Dusk Till Dawn effects. Where
Again, very funny. All that spurting out of to me, it reminded me of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
oh
It's just
sure,
like,
yes,
it's only a flesh wound. Spurt, spurt,
it's
spurt.
all very over the top.
Yeah.
With the guy that who comes into her house, and she, because he sees her through the window and thinks that she's having a stroke, she slashes his throat, and it basically turns his head into a blood Pez dispenser.
right.
It's so over the top. The thing that that is the only because I guess he just was intact enough that he starts to come back as a vampire, and that is the only male vampire in this whole movie. Like all the other vampires are women, which is interesting.
Well, yeah, I hadn't actually thought about that. That also sets a little rule in this movie that you get bit by a vampire, you come back as a vampire like within minutes, like in Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, like right away.
Or from Dusk Till Dawn, frankly.
Right, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
It's although it does seem like it takes you a while to fully turn, because
Well, and Tom just his food, right? He's not a vampire.
he gets we never see Tom again, and he was attacked by the
Rats.
master's rats. So
yeah, you're right. He wasn't.
but
But didn't he also get attacked by what's her name? What's the girl's name? The one
Bonnie
that goes missing.
Aaron's.
No,
Oh no, you're
No.
thinking Jacob does, though.
well,
No, but
Amelia,
doesn't
I think
yeah,
you're-
Amelia.
Oh,
doesn't Amelia kill
her boy. You're thinking of skateboard.
Tom.
Skateboard.
Oh, she kills the skateboarder. Oh,
Yeah.
right. I was thinking she killed Tom, but you're right. She kills the skateboarder.
We never see
No.
him again, but presumably, yeah, he would come back, I guess. I mean, he might be running around as a skateboarding punk vampire in his complete other, different movie that's about him. It's the side story to
the Shaun
this
of the Dead.
movie. Yeah.
So as you mentioned, the master, who looks like Count Orlok or Barlow, or she's of that design. This is Bonnie Aarons, who is the nun. I wasn't even aware of that. But she plays the nun in the Conjuring universe movies, and what a very cool performer she is.
Just an incredibly striking woman when she's not out of in makeup, because she's just very tall. And I had like a lovely interaction with her when this movie first came out, with both
Oh,
her
really?
and Barbara Crampton, on Twitter, talking about how much I first of all enjoyed the costuming in this movie, but also I really like her performance in this. Like she's got all this business with her hands where she's almost puppeteering
Yes.
Barbara Crampton. And I know, to me that's like being able to bring a character like this to life through all that makeup is, to me, its own kind of skill. Like
Yes.
it takes somebody who, like, I also think about like Doug Jones, who's often the monster in
Pinhead.
all the he's Abe Sapien in the
Oh, I'm
Hellboy
so sorry.
movies.
I apologize.
You're thinking of
exactly right.
You're thinking of Doug Bradley, but
Yes, that's right.
also
That's right.
a good example though of what I'm talking about. But he played. He's known. Doug Jones is known for playing these sort of creature roles, and I think this is 100% a skill. The where like she just dominates any scene that she's in, even when she's in the background. Like my favorite scene in this whole movie is when Barbara Crampton comes in and she sees Jacob, on the ground, and he's in a trance and he's holding a knife to his neck. And then the master is just behind in the hallway and talking, but you can't take your eyes off of her because she's so fascinating, and
even when it's just the silhouette of the cape and the hat, it's like, what? That's cool.
Yes.
Yeah. And I feel like, I don't want to belabor a point too much, but I feel like we've sort of almost lost this kind of vampire in movies, because like since the 80s, and look, I love The Lost Boys and I love Near Dark and I love that, but like we sort of replaced this like aristocratic, almost godlike vampire with a more like earthy punk rock, like more blue collar image of a vampire, to make them more like rock and roll and to make them more hip. But there's still value in that classic movie vampire image, and I feel like this movie proves that, because every time this character is on screen, it's impressive, and it's visual, and it's what movies are about, because the character just by its silhouette, with like the cape and the hat and everything. And again, like every time like she swoops in on a victim and the cape just like spreads out like big bat wings, I'm just like,
it is really cool to see a vampire like this. And you're right that we don't have nearly enough of these. I liked what you said, the godlike vampire. That's what we do. We do need more of them. Traditional Dracula vampire.
Well, if it were TV tropes, they would say classic movie vampire.
Sure.
And like this is that. And I miss that. Like I wish more, like even when movies do Dracula anymore, they seldom do Dracula like this,
right?
Like,
no, you're exactly right. The BBC Dracula gave Dracula a rather, they did not give him a posh accent. They gave him a sort
Cary
of
Grant sort of,
a London sort of Mockney accent was what he spoke with, which was weird, But I keep going back also to Daughters of Darkness, which with Delphine Seyrig, and how good she was as the Countess there, how she's just too much for all of this. all of this tiresome business and this tiresome man and these tiresome people, and can't I just just drink blood and be left alone, and just she's just wonderful. All right, so what else should we touch on? Or would you like to get to fun? I know we've been kind of all over the place, but I think we've touched on most of the main themes of this film. But is there anything like we have
Well, I
not
do want to
gone?
talk about the ending a little bit because,
Yeah,
like I
please
said, that I was kind of
Yeah,
disappointed with
definitely.
lay it
the
on me.
ending. So yeah, you have this whole thing of the whole kind of self-discovery of what about being a vampire do I like? I mean, obviously she likes that she's young and healthy and strong, but also, she just kind of seems to like that she's released from the trappings of being the minister's wife that she's been this whole time. So she's like, I like it. I want to stay this way. And so we're just gonna have to figure out what to do about the whole blood thing. But then when they go to kiss, like she vamps her teeth, like vamps out like her teeth or whatever. And like, is she about to like? Are they gonna just keep having this every time, every day? He's gonna have to keep like making her remember. No, 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 you're not supposed to bite me. I mean, like, I don't. I just was unsatisfied with that. I thought it
Because we
wasn't
don't
really
see how it
resolution.
I
resolves.
loved the
Yeah,
ambiguity of
beauty.
the ending
I'm
because
with you too.
like
Yeah, I didn't.
she like looks like she's about to bite him and he has the stake in hand, and it just
Yeah,
means like we don't know what is next for this relationship. It reminded me of like when John Carpenter is firing on all cylinders and he would do an ending like this. And I don't know, I was very satisfied about that because I like the the status of their relationship kind of ending on a question mark,
Well,
like
but
yeah,
especially since she's really, I mean, before this, she's really saying like, look, we've gotten over some of our relationship stuff. I was tempted just to let you get killed or vamped by the, I went against the master, and now we're at this. Like, I'm a vampire, you're not. Why don't we take over the world? He's like, well, I don't want to. Like, I'm still the minister. I'm still your husband. I'm still the guy who's your husband, but
Yeah,
I love you. And so we've been all through all this. And so it's this, I like the will they, won't they, because it's like, will they, won't they, but to a next degree. Like, does she vamp him and they wander the earth, being this vampire, new married vampire power couple? Or does he have to kill her because this hunger is going to constantly plague her and
or
he's
are
got
they
to do
just
the
gonna
right thing?
constantly
Or is
do
she
this
going to
battle?
kill him,
Yeah,
or
and
does he
Uh,
yeah,
get
well,
I
or
I mean
does
like
he
that.
that
get stuck
actually.
being the Renfield?
Right.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
good. It's good that you guys liked it. I'm just a sucker for a happy ending, and so this was like not
I
that.
don't
So
think that's wrong.
A
I mean,
happy
I
ending
totally
to
get
me
where you're
would have
coming
felt
from.
like a slap in the face for this movie. Like I like a happy ending when it's appropriate. I don't think it would have been appropriate here. Like I think some things, the point of this movie is to make you ask questions about relationships,
hmm
and for me the movie ends with another question.
yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, it's also kind of weirdly, you also playing on yet again another vampire trope. If we were to look at this as like the middle-aged version of Buffy, like you have a vampire slayer in love with a vampire. How's
yes.
that going to work? Like
Yeah,
I
I don't
guess
know.
but it's true that there's kind of no ending, and
And
it
that's fair. I mean, if it didn't work for Julia, I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm saying the ending was right for me, I
yeah.
guess.
Then
no,
it's
I get
probably
that.
a good ending if it keeps people talking afterwards. I was like, what next? Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
torn because
again, like,
obviously I love Some Like It Hot, and Some Like It Hot to some extent leaves some things hanging. What's going to happen, and and so I can live with that. I would have liked maybe a sort of a button on the end of this, as opposed to a sort of "here we go again" kind of gag. But I guess we don't. I don't know. It's not enough that I would knock off a grade or anything. I really like this movie. So the fact that I don't really feel like there's a resolution. Is
Well,
okay.
the A plot is resolved.
Yes,
The master is dead.
that's absolutely right. Yeah,
The cops. I love the cops' reaction to where they
Yeah,
basically walk in from their small town cop movie into a vampire movie, and they say to Jacob, "Yeah, this seems like this is more your realm." Like,
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like
we're-
I
Yeah,
say.
that is
I think we're
great.
going to write it up as a domestic dispute, nonviolent.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
how are you going to explain all these bodies everywhere?
Yes.
Well,
Or
they've
missing
seen
people
so
if there's no bodies.
much. Yeah, I mean, they've
Yeah.
seen so much. Like they realize, like we're small town cops, and this is yeah. I mean, they've been through the where they look like they were gonna be mired in blood, like all of that. They're like, handle it your way, and we're gonna go over here. And I
Well,
think
also
that's
talk
pretty great.
about subverting your expectations
Exactly. Yeah.
again. I really thought the master was going to kill the two cops. Like I was
Right.
expecting that,
Yeah.
and the fact that they kind of walk away baffled to me is
Yeah.
hilarious.
That
Well,
is
and
hilarious.
it's great. It's great that that part of the domestic, because again, the whole thing with the marriage, the complicated and the surprises, the fact that the wife is Jacob's wife is mad because he kills the master, and she's like, "This was my decision to make, not
Yes.
Oh
yours."
yeah, that was great.
It's just so funny that that's yet another part of just their marital, like,
It's more
disagreements,
conflict,
is like,
but it's
yeah,
not deadly
exactly, more
conflict. That's the hilarious thing
right.
is it's played for a little bit of humor that
Yeah.
this is not something they're not going to be able to overcome. She's just like, one of the things we need to work on is you need to stop trying to make decisions for me.
Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
her agency is taken away in destroying the master of vampires, which is
Yes.
Exactly.
but again that's
So funny.
those each of those twists, that's another reason why when we have the ending the way it is, it's another twist of this isn't giving you
No,
exactly
you're
what
right.
you
You're right.
like
You've
what you need.
convinced me.
And
You've convinced me that
but
it's the correct ending.
I get where you're coming from, but it is like each twist is like, whoa, that didn't go where I thought it was going to go.
Well, the thing
And that was awesome.
about what I tend to call John Carpenter endings is, a lot of movies try it and they don't pull it off. I feel like this movie did, for me. But your mileage may vary.
I just would have skipped the final bite because it feels like you're starting a new scene. Whereas if you had not done that, if you had them sit silently like the characters at the end of The Graduate, you'd feel like the movie was over.
But The Graduate is a comedy, and this ended like a vampire movie.
I get you're exactly
I-
right. Yes,
Yeah.
that's an excellent point. Yeah. So that's a compelling answer. Julia, thank you for asking to talk about the ending. That was really cool.
Also, this movie endorses medical marijuana.
Yes,
As
that was
an
hilarious.
as an aid for vampire hunger pangs.
Yes, that
Although you
was
probably
that
get
was
different
really
hunger
neat.
pains, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let us get our final thoughts and anything else that you want to throw in, and then we'll come around and do endorsements. What a fun film talking about Jacob's wife with Barbara Crampton and Larry Fessenden. We talked Drew, Julia, Tony, and Jason. So, Drew, lay it on me. What are your final thoughts?
I am so glad that we finally talked about this. Like I said, I've been wanting us to do an episode on this pretty much since the moment I saw it. So this is lovely, and I enjoyed talking it up with y'all. I think this is a great little film, and a perfectly good. By the way, it's on Shudder. And Shudder is one of the cheapest apps you can get on Roku Box. It's about the price of going to Starbucks, and you get so much
Price of a
more
cup of
than
coffee.
and just you get so much more than just Jacob's wife. So it's worth checking out, and then checking out all the other stuff that's on Shudder and supporting independent horror movies, because last week we did the new Ghostbusters, which is of course a long and storied franchise, and I love Ghostbusters, but I loved that we followed it up by doing a much smaller independent film. I think that is terrific. So awesome.
Excellent. Thank you. Julia.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think it's such an interesting story. I want to shout out the writers, Mark Steensland. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Kathy Charles and Travis Stevens. I think that Travis Stevens also the director. That it's just a really clever script. I think there's, because of all the layers that we've been talking about, and the fact that it's funny, and also I wouldn't say it's super scary, but it definitely has its creepy moments. And a lot of that is because of the direction, and of course we've already talked about the acting. The cast is great, so I think it's a really fun movie to watch, and very thought-provoking. So it's been a fun discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you. Tony, what about you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I feel bad that I hadn't seen it before, but I guess you can't watch everything. But yeah, it was really good. Also, we get a remake of Bloodletting, the vampire song.
Yes.
The original.
That was so on the.
originally
That was
done
another
by,
funny. That was another
Yeah.
funny thing, is it was so on the nose for her to be listening to that.
Sure, but it's a pretty good remake, and the original Concrete Blonde song is fantastic. So that was also pretty cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. It is gory. It's not scary, but it is gory. But the gore is also kind of over the top, so it's easy to go, this is in the realm of just horror movie, over the top stuff. And yeah, it's such a great. I just love how they weave you through this, and it twisty and turny enough that it could have been it would have been fine with this cast had it been played straight. Like, each of the tropes we talked about hadn't been turned slightly. It could have just been that. And it could have been straight to video years ago, and that there's a multiverse where that would have been, hey, go along with the master. Each thing could have been that, and it would have been fine. And the fact that it's more than that is really fantastic. By the way, I also now need to look at what grocery store. Now I'm curious what grocery store it is, because I didn't pay attention, and I'm now thinking about where it is. I'm curious if it's a Piggly Wiggly or not. Like, that's the kind of minutia. I'm like,
No, I'm
what
with
was it?
you. I love to geek out in exactly that way. I was watching The House by the Cemetery and looking at the grocery store they went to, and I was thinking, I wonder if that grocery store is there. And yeah.
Like, because that's the one. Like, or as some people in the South call it, Hoggly Woggly. It's the alternative. But I'm curious if it's a Piggly Wiggly or not. I'm gonna have to go check that out.
Awesome. My last comment is just that I feel like Jacob's Wife shows what you can do with an independent horror film. That there are sometimes people will do an independent horror film and they'll just go straight for just a traditional, like a spooky ghost story or a spooky vampire story. And I think that's great. And if that's what's in your heart, I don't think that you should do something different. But I really like that this also shows how you can do something at an indie level that nevertheless really challenges us and has us thinking about a lot of different themes. And I think, and maybe in fact, indie film is the best place to do that, because gigantic films aren't necessarily going to do that. So I was really happy with this. And I think Travis Stevens is really cool. I interviewed him a few years ago for his film, The Girl on the Third Floor. So, I didn't get a chance to interview him about this, and I'm shocked that I didn't, because it was a blast. All right. So that's our discussion of Jacob's Wife. Go watch it. Let us know what you think. What about our endorsements? What you've been watching, what you've been listening to? I might not have anything. I have to look at my notes and see if I actually have anything. I'm dying to know if you guys have anything. Drew, do you have anything?
I have about a half endorsement. I watched, believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying this, the new Asylum film, which is a Universal Monsters pastiche, right down to the fact that it's called Monster Mash. The conceit of the movie is so obvious that I'm surprised no one has ever done it before, in which Dr. Frankenstein is collecting parts from all the other monsters to create a sort of super monster. And so Dracula, the Invisible Man, the Mummy, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein's monster, here called appropriately enough Boris, decide to team up to take out Dr. Frankenstein. It's
What a
not
perfect name Monster Mash is.
it's not a great movie. It's the Asylum, so it's of a certain quality, but I can tell the people who made it really enjoy old Universal monster movies. Like there's enough references to stuff from the old movies that I could tell that they were fans. Plus, while I think that Michael Madsen was completely miscast as Dr. Frankenstein, who he plays like one of his gangster characters from a Quentin Tarantino movie. I really liked the guy playing Dracula, and I really liked the guy playing the Invisible Man. Like you can tell that they were having a very good time with it, giving very over the top line readings. So
See, I think Asylum is pretty great, and the reason I say that
it
is
has
like,
its certain charm. Like
Yeah.
this movie has a certain charm. I'm bringing all this up so I don't want people to think that it's like gonna be like this is a B movie. Like,
yeah.
and I think that's okay. Some people are not okay with that, if that makes sense. Like if you are okay with like a lower budget movie about the classic monsters, this has a certain entertainment value. If you are expecting something like like if you're expecting something that's gonna like have like a very posh quality to it, like this is not going to work for you. But I had a good time, and I am a big Universal fan, so take that what it's will. Like I think that this had its heart in the right place as far as affection for those old monster movies. Like I think that was pretty clear here. So I had a really good time watching it.
I'm checking out their website, and it looks to me, I can't tell if they don't. That would be shocking to me if a movie studio doesn't regularly update their website. But I suppose
it was released literally this weekend. Like
Okay.
it's on. I watched it through Fandango. Like it's video on demand. I'm sure it'll hit like Prime and everything not too long from now. It's a pretty cheap rental. It was only $3.99. So like for me getting like a new movie with all those characters in it, like was worth it. But when I talked about it on my Facebook, there were like people going, well, why not just watch Monster Squad again? I was like, well, I've seen Monster Squad like probably a few hundred times.
I don't know what that question means. I mean, you got to watch other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like sometimes you just want you want something new, and you want to see what somebody else is going to do with these characters. So
Yes.
like you might as well be saying is why don't you just watch Frankenstein meets the Wolfman again, or Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein? Because like
Right.
those movies, like even
Or
Monster
Thunderball.
Squad,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. No, I know. Yeah.
To me that's a silly question. Like
Well,
this
the hilarious thing is that the answer is, don't worry, Chief. I'm going to watch Thunderball again, probably this weekend. But there are a lot of hours in the day.
Yeah,
Yes.
like sometimes you just want to watch something new, but that also tickles a certain nostalgic vibe, and this hit that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you very much. Puts me in a good mood. Julia, what do you got?
I really enjoyed Late Night with the Devil. I thought it was really creative and
Yeah.
interesting, and I had a blast watching that this weekend. So it's so weird, and it's such a great idea to just spend a whole hour with a 70s talk show where everything that's occult has just gone terribly wrong or whatever. Not terribly wrong, but actually exactly how you would expect it to go. But no, it's super creative and really interesting.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you very much. Tony, what about you?
A couple things actually, or several things. We watched the Steve Martin documentary in two pieces. I think it's on Apple. Yeah, Apple TV.
Oh, I haven't
That
seen it.
was really great. Fascinating documentary. And again, some of the best comedy has grown out of trauma or how how you're dealing with things, and just he's been a favorite of mine for years and years and years growing up. and then my parents had some of his albums, and just seeing him on Saturday Night Live and the whole Wild and Crazy Guys era of things. And The Jerk is still one of my favorite movies. We actually ended up watching Pennies from Heaven because of this documentary, which it did bomb, and I can see why it did, but that was also fascinating to come out of, like, what is this? What were people expecting Steve Martin to do, and how did he, what movies has he been in? Yeah, that was great. I also saw Problemista, which it was really good. I really enjoyed that movie. I definitely recommend it if you are a fan of lots of spookies. You probably like this as well. But I really enjoyed Problemista. And then on video games, I'm playing something really interesting. This is the geeky part of it. It's called Chance of Sonar, and it's a game that's kind of in the walk around solving puzzles genre, but it kind of looks a little bit like it's influenced by Mobius, the comics, the famous artist Mobius, but it's all about language. So you're basically, as you start going through the puzzles, you're learning to talk to people through glyphs, basically, or written word. And you're slowly going, they're asking me for this thing. I don't know enough about what sentences these are. And then, it's kind of a made up, and there's several different glyph systems, so like these people talk with these glyphs and these people talk with these other glyphs, and so you're trying to figure that out. I think it's fascinating. Like, that's the kind of geeky puzzly stuff that I like. But I thought it's really pretty original in that sense of, there's some action stuff, but in general, you're trying to figure out, like, how do I talk to people when I don't know what they're saying? It's part of the puzzle. And I don't know, there's something kind of really cool about that, in addition to the visuals being pretty striking. So
Wonderful. Thank you very much. This weekend, I was like, I want to kick back and watch something that's spooky and gothic. And I went on to some of the boards, and I'm like, what's something spooky and gothic? And I found a cool one called A Taste of Evil, which stars Roddy McDowall and Barbara Stanwyck and Barbara Parkins. And there might be a ghost in the woods, and there's a big spooky house, and I was like, perfect. But somebody recommended something called Dark Mansions. I'm not making this up. 1986, starring Joan Fontaine. Dark Mansions was Aaron Spelling's attempt to reboot Dark Shadows, basically as a cross of Dark Shadows and Knots Landing. And he called it Dark Mansions, and it was released as a movie, and it didn't go as a series. But the only way you can watch it is on a really, really, really crappy, like, YouTube version that's like all pixelated. You can't even see really what's going on. And I'm like, that can't be it. There has to be somebody has to have a good transfer of this. Someone out there. So if anybody within the sound of my voice has a decent copy of Dark Mansions, I want to see it. So that's I don't know if it's an endorsement, but it's a plea out into the universe. I want to see Dark Mansions with Joan Fontaine in some version where you can actually see Joan Fontaine's face. We will be back probably next week. I don't even know what movie with. I don't know what we're watching next.
Are we doing Satanic Hispanics next?
We certainly could. Yeah, we can.
For some reason, I thought that I could be wrong. You can cut that if that.
No, I think we definitely have talked about it. I can't remember if we ever actually nailed down the calendar, but Julia was totally interested in it. I'm totally interested in it, so I'm down for that if that's something you guys want to do. So then that saves us having to choose.
The more stuff that I can do via Shudder right now, the better.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Come to the Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you have an angle on some Blu-ray version of Dark Mansions, maybe, and I'll be very thankful. And everybody, be kind to one another. Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Night.
good night.
Good night.